Awesome. Okay, I can see everyone coming in. We will just wait for a minute or two just to let everyone join the session. And then I will do some introductions and we can get started with the topic of today. Great. Okay, so we've started a couple of minutes late due to some technical issues. So thank you very much, everyone, for your patience. We'll get started just to make sure that we keep the timings and get through everything that we need to today, and you all find the most value out of the session.
Sarah, you're actually on mute right now.
Oh, thanks. Great, thanks for that. So, as I was saying, welcome to the talk today on how the cost of living crisis is impacting the mental well-being of your employees. I'm Sarah, a financial coach here at Claro, and I'll be facilitating the talks today. So first of all, thank you very much, everyone, for joining the session. And thank you very much to Auntie for providing us with this platform to share this information with all of you. So first of all, I'll introduce Joanna, who is the CRO of Auntie, and she'll share a little bit more about what they'll do. And then we'll go into some introductions about the webinar itself today. So take it away, Joanna.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, Claro, for partnering with us to do this webinar about a super important and very hot topic at the moment. I'm just going to be very brief before we dig into the actual topic of today. So my name is Johanna, and I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Auntie. And what we do at Auntie is we support the mental well-being of employees before issues start getting overwhelming at the point when you have stress or motivational issues or something happens in your personal life and you need someone to talk to. We work with around 450 organizations in the Nordics and Europe, and I'm happy to share more about that with all of you after the webinar. But now I will let Maarit and Stacey go ahead and we can start the discussion about today's topic. Thank you.
Thanks, Joanna. Great. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we begin. If anyone has any questions, there is a Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. So please do feel free to type in any questions. And what we'll do is we'll come to those at the end of the session. So we'll make sure that those are picked up. So please do write any questions if you have them. If you have any general comments, then feel free to use the chat box, but we will use the Q&A box for any questions. So just to introduce a little bit about Maarit before she dives in. She is a psychotherapist and psychologist, and she's always been interested in the psychology of money. And in 2022, she published a book called Money Wisdom, where she explores how our childhood experiences and personalities influence our approach towards financial issues. And she gives concrete advice on how to develop healthier relationships towards money. She's been helping her clients for more than 10 years in her private practice and has worked extensively in the Finnish healthcare system. So we are very, very honoured and privileged to have her with us here today. And she's also an appreciated researcher at the University of Helsinki, as well as visiting researcher at the London School of Economics and Political Science. So Maarit, if you want to take it away, I can then introduce Stacey a little bit later in the session today.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for your kind introduction. I am going to show you some slides because it helps me to sort of structure my talk. I hope that the internet connection is going to be strong enough for me to keep the camera on. If it slows down, I will just put it off for a while. But thanks so much for inviting me to join this webinar and to give this talk. I'm going to talk about the psychology of personal finances and how we deal with money in our lives. I'm sure you all know that this is very acute, very timely topic everywhere in Europe And I have been talking about this topic with my own clients, also with colleagues from different fields. And we all agree that we need more talk about money and more talk about resilience as well, so we can tackle the problems and the surprises that might be on the way. So in my talk, I'm going to talk about what is our relationship with money. That's something that we often don't really think about that much, that we do have that kind of relationship, how it develops and how emotions and cognitions guide personal finances. Of course they do, but there is an interesting balance how they make our decisions and guide us to a certain direction. Also how emotions are part of decision making in general, but also the financial decision making altogether. Sometimes we might get stuck with emotional reactions, and we need certain tools to examine our money relationship. The effects of financial stress and how to alleviate stress reaction is also one of the topics. And finally, money shame and money resilience. I think those are sort of two sides of the coin. So we can't talk about one without talking about the other. They are really connected in many ways in our personal lives, but also in money issues in general. Emotional landscape is something that is going to be the basis of this talk, if I could say so. It's something that is affected by our life history and environment, surroundings. And as you know, emotions are experiences that we often feel not only in our mind, but also in our body. We interpret the signals and we name the emotions as best we can. And emotions provide us information about ourselves. And it's really important to think that they are not there to make us confused, but they are important for human survival. And I'm going to talk a little bit how different emotions affect our reactions. So how do you name and differentiate your emotions is not really simple topic. And when I ask someone like, how are you feeling now? Or what kind of emotions you are experiencing, they can usually say if they are calm or restless. Or they can say if it's pleasant or if it's unpleasant experience. But further than that, it gets mostly complicated and needs a little bit of practice, but it's worth it. So you could, for example, in this moment, just check, how are you feeling? Is it calm? Are you enjoying this situation? Or is there something that is a little bit stressing in the back of your mind? Okay. So everybody has a relationship with money. The beginning of our relationships takes place early in our childhood. In fact, there has been research saying that before the age of 7, we develop many of the attitudes and emotions that are related to money. And those attitudes and also values, if you want to think about them in this context, they are pretty permanent. So it's difficult to change them, and they are really founded in our childhood. So if you think about how the people close to us relate to money, everybody has their own relationship, of course. Our family has their own relationship. And the smartest thing to do is really to talk about it. But this is something that has been quite difficult if you think about the past generations. Avoidance of money talk can lead to money shame and hopelessness, which are often considered as risk factors for poor mental health. So now you might be wondering, okay, we have same family, but very different attitudes towards money when you think about sisters and brothers. This is not really surprising because children who are born to the same family may have completely different attitudes towards certain things. We all have our unique path. We have our personalities, how we interact with the people who are close to us, and also we may be born in a specific time in family life and therefore have quite different experience. For example, young families might have more money problems, whereas more mature families might be in a different situation. But these experiences shape our lives and attitudes towards money. So money talk at school or at home. We know that lessons in home economics, in financial issues are given. For example, in Finland, they start in the 4th grade when you are about 10 years old. You would think that's early, but it's not. It's actually late if you think about how much has been going on before that, and many attitudes that have been already formed during those childhood years. And this is important because when we have sort of strong opinions or preconceptions about things, it affects how we learn things, how interested we are in things. So we bring this mindset to our lessons and we take out different things, even if the lesson is completely the same for everybody. Children take different things from that. And that also sort of develops our relationship in the long run. So, what is your relationship with money? And what is your first memory about money? This is a practice that I use quite a lot. And even if you don't have to do it right now, right here, because we don't have time maybe for that, I encourage you to sit down for a moment, maybe after this webinar, to relax and let your mind wander. Can you pinpoint an early memory relating to money or any money-related behavior? Is there something that you learned by it? And what kind of emotions are present in that moment? Then, relationship with money. I'm going to talk about this a little bit, even if we are going to talk about later on about money in the work context. I think it's really important to see those early influences and why they are probably quite strong in our lives. If you think about parental attitudes and skills and knowledge that transfer to kids through everyday interaction, the more we have closeness and the more we have interaction, the more it has impact on attitudes. And there is some pretty convincing research about how parental attitudes guide our perceptions of risk, consumer choices, and brands. We tend to think that it's mostly peers who sort of give us those influences, but it is really important part of the parental guidance or the parental sort of upbringing that brings us certain kind of mindsets. And that parental influence may be surprisingly long-standing. I mean, research indicates that it may have more impact on young adult financial attitudes and the handling of personal finances than school, later education, even if it could be financial education as well, and work experience combined. So this is really interesting because basically it has the same sort of idea that we tend to process information in a way that it fits with the previous information that we have and the previous attitudes, previous frameworks and previous mindsets. So it's really important to sort of take a look on that and consider where do we get those ideas that we have. For example, according to one study, Strengthening personal finance skills by doing things together with parents provides children and young people with more delayed gratification and less impulsivity with purchases, which is really a good thing. So I would encourage, and this is a top tip, to if you're a parent or if you are engaged with young people, or basically if you want to train someone, take part, act together, reflect on your own behavior. And if you want to influence young people, learning by doing is really the key, as it is everywhere. Increasing awareness information is not necessarily beneficial. We all think that, okay, we give them information and they will act on it, but that's not the case. Often good advice comes too late, and it might be also embedded in a negative context, so it's hard to sort of process, and people are not very grateful of getting that advice or very happy about that. So that has a big influence as well. So, emotions in the decision making. If we think about emotions, they make our world meaningful, and without them, we would be like constantly bombarded by information through our senses, and we would be kind of like drifting without an anchor. So we make better decisions when we consider issues that are meaningful and emotional for us. That makes sense because, of course, the focus is sharper when we do that. Emotions should not be excluded, but they should be guided to motivate us to best possible decision making in things that matter to us. And also to notice that if there's something we have to decide and it's not really important for us, the emotions might not be present, and we might also make quite superficial decisions, or processes might not be deep enough to guide us in a best way to the best possible decision. So emotions are equal. They are not good or they are not bad. For example, if we think about positive emotional experiences, we usually think that this is good for us. It's good to be positive and optimistic. But it's good to also acknowledge that emotions have different effects on us. For example, joy brings us confidence in our own performance, but it also might give us less accuracy and less persistence. Whereas anger might be the key for aggression, but also to taking care of safety, of our own safety, of others' safety, and opposing unfairness. So it's not really black and white. Acting wisely with emotions. The map of emotions helps us to name and describe emotional experiences and their nuances and bodily sensations. So I think it would be interesting if you want to just go to this, for example, to this emotional emotion map that can be found online, and to check how many emotions you actually recognize there, how many you could say that you have felt like during the past week. And if you have never thought about emotions in this way, in this detail, and it feels difficult, don't worry, because this is the situation with most of the people. Naming emotions outside the few basic emotions might be demanding, but if you practice, it will pay off. And more you do it, more you notice the different kind of sensations and different kind of reactions that you might have during your daily life. Another tool, try money diary. For example, in what kind of situations you use money during the week, you could write down some specific transactions and what kind of emotions or thoughts stay awake. This is something that is very unusual. It's not the same thing as keeping track of expenses or budgeting, but it's really about seeing like what kind of reactions do these different transactions awaken you. For example, bills, purchases, savings, investments. For example, if investments give you the sense of security or peace? That would be interesting to know. You can make your entries very quickly after each transaction, so you actually know what is happening in that certain moment. Okay. Everybody knows about stress. You know that there is increase in blood pressure, you know that there's elevated heart rate, rapid breath, tension in muscles, and so on and so on. And most of us have also heard about the fight or flight reflex. Sometimes it can be also freeze. So the stress we have experienced in our lives, in our childhood and in our youth, indicates how our stress management system operates in adulthood. And if we have had like continuous chronic stress, it might be overactivated and recovery may not happen. So early experiences are very important. And if we notice that we are stressed most of the time, it's really good to think about certain tools and certain ways to help the recovery to happen. Psychological flexibility, which is something that is opposed to stress and really helps us to feel better, is developed when we meet appropriate challenges in a sufficiently secure environment. And this should apply to work as well, that we have challenges, but we also have the resources. So chronic stress increases the risk for example, internet dependency and shopping addiction. And in fact, many people use this as stress busting strategies, but they break our financial balance and they really harm our social relationships. I have met many people who use shopping for comfort, or they talk about shopping therapy, and we often laugh about it and we take it lightly. However, it is something that might be as difficult to stop as any other addictions. And it is very harmful strategy if you want to sort of live with your emotional experiences. So even if those tools like shopping and internet surfing provide short bursts of hormones, of endorphins, and create a feeling of pleasure, they have like long-standing harmful effects. So it's good to think about this as well if you want to use these strategies, or if you would like to find something else that would probably make you feel better in the long run. Stress cannot be eliminated, but we can lessen the harmful effects it has on our life. And if you recognize that the impact of financial stress in your life is really high, I would recommend enhancing mental financial well-being. And that is something that is not only wealth or savings or investments, but it is sort of taking control of your own financial life, your own decisions in your personal finances. How you want to organize that, what kind of help you need, and how would you feel at peace with it, and how would you feel that you have a bright future ahead of you. So that is kind of comprehensive financial well-being. And of course, you need good stress busting strategies that are not related to spending money. Just very briefly, because I noticed that we are also running out of time, money shame is a painful emotional experience related to lack of money. It could be also lack of ownership or lack of work, but basically it makes us feel faulty, worthless, or outsider in our community. It can be internal, what I think about myself. For example, many people feel that they do poorly with money, or they're bad with money in their personal finances. Or the external experience, what others think about me. How am I looked at? Am I credible? Am I worthy? or am I pitied in some way? So that sort of shapes the experience of shame related to money. And if you think about how we move from money shame towards resilience, it's important that we recognize that this is our situation. In this moment, we have to be radical realists. So this situation is based on my life history so far, but it's not my fault in a way that many things have happened that I can't control, and I still have to deal with them. And this situation awakens these emotions. This is how I feel about it. And to deal with it, I can get help from. Most of us need somebody to talk to and somebody who can sort of confront our money shame and draw us towards the realistic view of the situation. So shame is psychologically and physiologically heavy burden. And when we want to do change in our life, we need energy, we need hope, we need confidence to make changes. And shame is really not conducive for those positive, lasting changes. So the antidote for money shame is empathy. I would say just talk to people you trust, be compassionate towards yourself, and ask for help. And sometimes it might be easier to talk to somebody who is not very close to you, maybe not a family member, but somebody who really has time to listen to you, and maybe somebody who also knows a little bit about psychology and about finances. And now I will transfer to Stacey's presentation, saying just that personal finance skills are always learned and people are not born with it. But by attaining and supporting growth mindset, we can always strengthen these skills. So working life as it is always affected with financial troubles, it makes sense to support employees who have those troubles, and it's never too late. Thank you. Here you go, Stacey.
Thanks so much, Maarit, for sharing those ideas. I love the ideas of learning by doing and creating a money diary to help us recognize our emotions. And I also love the idea of being able to talk to someone in a safe space that can help you to create new perspectives. I often say that the idea of our emotional balance sheet is just as important as our financial balance sheet. So those resources that you shared, I'm sure will be really helpful for people. Next up, we have Stacey. So Stacey is the head of financial wellbeing, and she's also a financial coach at Claro. She has 14 years experience in the investment industry, working for global corporates, fintechs, and startups. And she has completed various financial qualifications. She became a self-employed coach in 2018 and set up her own financial coaching business with a focus on financial wellbeing and green money. She is also an advisory board member for Money Movers, a national project to empower women to use their personal finances to tackle the climate crisis. And Stacey works with individual coaching clients, as well as designing and delivering finance-related workshops and content for teams. So I'm going to invite her in. Just as a side note, I can see a couple of questions coming in. We will be sharing the recording after this session. Of course, there might be some technical issues, but please bear with us. Hopefully you're all catching as much as possible, but we will be sharing that after. So just to let you all know about that. So great, Stacey, take it away.
Thank you, Sarah. So as Maarit explained, money is deeply personal, and it's something that, of course, transcends into our career and our work environment, because it's so deeply integrated into the reason that we work and how we value ourselves at work, and something that we measure our career success against. I know from my experience, having been in the investment industry in Canary Wharf in London for so long, and then being self-employed, my money trajectory hasn't been a straight upward one through my career, and neither has my emotional and mental well-being as a result. But it also hasn't been strongly correlated with how much money I'm earning and how emotionally well I feel and how successful I think I am at that time. So there's obviously a lot more going on with our relationship with money than just what our salary is and how much we're being remunerated by our employer. And thankfully, employers are beginning to recognize that, and employees alike are looking to their employers, especially at times like the cost of living crisis, to see how they can support them with their financial wellness and their general well-being. So I'm going to focus a bit more on what the employer can do to support employees through their financial wellness journey. So let's start with getting the foundations right. Our number one step is always listening to your employees and collecting data to really test the assumptions that we think we have on the financial well-being of our employees and what solutions we think that they need. So that might be collecting information from your teams on their demographics. Are there any trends within certain age groups, within certain genders and identities, within certain locations and where they're working? And are there any trends in there or gaps that you might need to address? You can do that by online anonymous surveys. Claro provides such surveys to employers, so employees can rest assured that they're not necessarily sharing very personal individual financial information with their employer directly, so ensuring that that confidentiality and anonymity remains. Conducting financial health checks, so finding out how many employees are in debt, or how many have an emergency fund, how many feel they have financial resilience to absorb a financial shock like the cost of living crisis, how many of them have started to invest, how many of your employees are opting out or opting into your workplace pension, and are they maximizing those contributions? All of that information can help you assess the financial resilience of your teams, and potentially any flight risks or employees who might be vulnerable to seeking work for higher income elsewhere, which from my own experience as well, I know isn't always the answer, just earning more money. So what you can put in place with your own financial wellbeing program to retain your talent. And then, as Maarit has so neatly shown, emotional stories around money can be very, very powerful. So we'll talk about this later on, but sharing leadership stories of their own money journey and their career journey and their relationship with money, people who have overcome that money stress or money shame, or just creating a space where you can start opening up these conversations about money and destigmatizing that conversation. So collecting all of this qualitative and quantitative data can really test our assumptions on what we think are how our teams feel about money, what financial situation they're really in, are high salaries masking poor financial behaviors, for example, and that all of that information should be the cornerstone that informs the financial wellness solution that you implement at your organization. And then it's about reviewing what you already have. You may obviously have your workplace pension scheme in place. You may have a cycle to work scheme. You may have a discounts portal. We'll talk about some of those products and solutions later. But it's worth reviewing the uptake of those. How many employees are using them? What feedback do they have on them? Do they even know what's available to them? And using this data to position the current benefits in order to make the most of them, and identify the gaps in your current offering where you might want to introduce new products and solutions to have more of a complete financial wellness offering that is accessible to all. But we're recognizing that this is still a new concept in the workplace. for employees and employers alike, talking about money, talking about financial wellness, understanding how the cost of living crisis is impacting the financial wellness and general well-being of your employees. These are scary conversations to have in our personal lives, let alone with our bosses or our leaders of our organization. So it's about employers putting in place a psychologically safe environment and appropriate spaces where these money conversations can be had in an open and honest way. So ensuring that you're protecting the confidentiality and the trust of your employees, and you are building their trust in you. You're acknowledging and addressing the money and mental health impacts and the relationship between the mental health and financial well-being offerings that you have in place, and ensuring that they're complementary with each other. Acknowledging that there might be D&I differences. You might have D&I objectives in your organization already, and money will be a part of those trends that you're seeing. So really role modeling this transparency around money. Are there gender pay gaps, BAME pay gaps? Are you publicizing that information and sharing that information with employees? Are employees aware how you conduct pay reviews, when those pay reviews happen, and what they need to be doing in order to position themselves appropriately? Increasing that transparency around money-related conversations in the workplace can be really helpful, and not only about an individual's financial success in the workplace, but how the business is doing. What stage of a business's life cycle are you in? How is the business performing? How is the business being impacted by the cost of living crisis? This all provides incredibly useful information for each individual to assess their own position in the company, and demonstrates to them the usefulness of having these open financial conversations on an individual and business level. And it's really important to be inclusive, accessible, and adaptable. As Maarit has been speaking about, our relationship with money is deeply personal, and I'm sure any managers on the call will really empathize with that and recognize that, because what you think will be the same financial conversation with each member of your team will feel totally different, because you're bringing a relationship with money and they're bringing their own relationship with money to the table. So it's really important that your financial well-being offering in your workplace, the reason you're doing it and the values behind your financial well-being offering is consistent across the business, but you're able to adapt the way that you deliver that financial well-being offering to individuals in a way that resonates with them, that is accessible with them, and that feels inclusive to them. So some tips here on how you can embed that financial well-being offering really into the culture of the organization. Identifying and nurturing financial well-being champions can be really, really helpful. Having people on board, those champions at all levels of the organization, leadership absolutely kind of core in being financial well-being champions, but just as important are those team members kind of on the office floor who have great relationships with everybody, people who are mental first aiders, and them recognizing the importance of financial well-being offering and connection to somebody's mental health. These financial wellbeing champions can act as testers for potential financial wellbeing products and solutions that you might want to implement, trying it out with them first, getting feedback from them, and then they can share their positive experiences with the rest of the teams as you implement that more widely. So financial wellbeing champions can be very, very important. They provide that two-way conversation between you and all of your employees about how the financial wellbeing offering is being received and ideas for how you might want to improve it in the future. Design an effective, timely, and consistent comms plan. So effective, I mean designing your comms plan based on what you've heard from listening to employees and creating that space for that feedback through surveys, through conversations you're having, through data that you've collected, using that to really shape the tone of the communications that you're sharing, using language that your employees are using. By timely, I mean recognizing moments in your business cycle where it's useful to have a communication around financial well-being, when the business is publishing its own profits, when you're launching a new product, when the cost of living has impacted a significant part of your business, like using that business cycle to take a moment to share some financial well-being communications, or the general market more widely, when the Bank of England announces a new interest rate in the UK, or when the government announces something that impacts mortgages or impacts savings rates. Is that a timely moment to share with your employees, by the way, we have this financial offering that can support you through this time? Claro has a financial calendar. It's only for the UK at the moment, but if you wanted to have access to that, it includes throughout the year all of the financial milestones that we have throughout the year that might be a timely moment to share some financial wellbeing communications with your business. And make it consistent, so it's not just a one and done. It's recognizing the opportune moments throughout the year where you want to reinforce and remind people of the financial wellbeing offering that you have in place. Keeping your teams informed of updates and what's available, and providing touch points for two-way communication and feedback. So that's when those financial wellbeing champions become very important. Can they provide those communications? Can you make a conversation about financial wellbeing a regular part of your one-to-ones with your team, for example? So identifying where you create those touch points, pulse surveys throughout the year, and keep on listening. A couple of things to avoid. We're all guilty of it in our personal and professional lives, and it takes kind of conscious effort to not do it. But assuming anyone's financial situation or their mental health needs, always ask first and keep listening, and really identifying, am I making assumptions around certain teams or certain individuals or people at certain pay levels, and do I actually know that to be true, or what can I do to test those assumptions? And never advise people or employees what they should be doing with their finances, especially in times like the cost of living crisis. That can obviously sometimes come across as patronizing. Definitely the coaches at Claro have really been working hard at that, to recognize kind of what's patronizing guidance right now, and what's empathetic guidance. And it's all about educating and empowering people, and recognizing that we all have good habits and bad habits with money. We all have good things to share with each other about money, and we all have lessons to share with each other about money. So ensuring that you're not assuming anything about someone's financial situation, and you're not advising them on what they should be doing, because those two things can potentially break that trust, and that's exactly what we're trying to be building. So I've mentioned a few products and services already in the financial wellbeing space, and mentioned that this is a new and evolving area, and thankfully now a hot topic in HR that people are really looking at addressing and implementing better financial wellbeing offering in their workplace. But we've really seen this evolution of what financial wellbeing looks like. So traditionally, it's been about a product offering. So yes, we have a workplace pension, or we can provide loans, or we have travel benefits and company cars. We have certain insurances in our employee contracts, or we provide workplace savings investments. All of those things absolutely have their place. They're about taking action and having a specific financial impact on people's finances, which is great. And they should be in place as appropriate, but financial well-being is more than that, as we're learning today. It's about recognizing the wider financial well-being landscape, and it's not just about the numbers. So lots of innovation has been happening, new entrants into the market, including Claro, offering solutions to help people manage their financial well-being and really like take ownership of their own financial well-being too. So we've seen solutions like one-off gestures of goodwill in the cost of living crisis. Some great organisations that we work with in the UK, where possible, have offered bonus schemes and things like that to help people through the cost of living. There's now lots of empowerment on how people receive their income, with tech solutions around wage streaming and salary advances. We have employee assistance programs, or what typically they are kind of more like crisis support hotlines. So when people are really feeling the stress, the money stress of the cost of living, they have a number that they can call and somebody they can speak to in those emergency moments. And those ones in red in the solutions there are some of the ones that Claro offers. So a general wellbeing platform that provides that financial education content and courses so people can build their own financial literacy, build their own financial knowledge, and feel more confident making their own financial decisions. Signposting resources where appropriate. So if somebody needs very specific debt advice, or they're looking to get their first mortgage, seeking a mortgage advisor, and ensuring that in a time of the cost of living crisis where there's so much noise around what people should be doing with their finances, signposting people to resources that they know that they can trust and that are credible. And those rewards and discounts portals when people are really struggling with their food bills, for example. Well, if giving them a 10-20% off at retailers can actually really help their bottom line. But now what we're seeing is really people understanding and recognizing the importance and the personal relationship that we have with money, and needing somebody to talk to, somebody that they can trust in a confidential space to really get to the bottom of their own, improve their own well-being. So Claro is obviously a huge advocate of that. The creme de la creme of our offering is our financial coaching team. And there are other providers in the market offering things like access to mortgage advice, to formal financial advice if people have enough money to do that, and access to various experts and partners. Another thing that Claro has recently launched is training courses for your teams to become financial first aiders. So similar to people having mental first aiders in their organization, you can come on a course with Claro. Your financial wellbeing champions perhaps can come on a course with Claro and train to be a financial first aider. So you have people within your organization, when others are feeling that money stress, that they have somebody that they can go to. So we've really seen this evolution of products and services out there. Now, what you choose for your organization, really depends on the listening you've been doing and understanding what your employees need. Like if lots of your employees are now coming back to work in the office for 2-3 days a week, are those travel benefits still really useful? Or is it that you discover that lots of your employees are struggling with debt at the moment and they need access to debt advice? Is it that people don't know how to talk about money and are feeling lots of money shame and want to better understand their relationship with money? Access to a one-to-one financial coach might be helpful. Or if you have lots of teams who are out on the road driving all day, or working on a shop floor or a manufacturing production line, they won't be able to access like a live webinar at lunchtimes, but maybe they can go onto a wellbeing platform and do an online course on their phone on their way home, or in the evenings, to build their own education and knowledge. So just knowing that there is this huge toolkit now out there with loads of innovation happening in this space, and you can pick and choose or test out some of these products and services available and see how well they go down with your teams. I just wanted to finish on some examples of what we've seen from organizations that we've been working with, about particularly within the cost of living crisis, what some of them have been doing to support their employees' financial well-being. So like I've said, we've had some organizations who can afford it to offer salary increases, one-off hardship payments, bonuses, profit shares. Some who still have lots of their team working from home have offered small monthly payments to cover those work from home costs. We've seen organizations, a large global organization actually has budgeted for pension contributions or wellbeing initiatives. So it's like a use it or lose it scheme, where they have access to like a pot of money each to spend on wellbeing initiatives. And if they don't spend it on that, the money that's left over actually goes as a contribution to their pension scheme. We have in the UK, lots of organisations, you can claim back the expenses for flu jabs, COVID tests, eye tests, glasses. Reminding people of that on an annual basis is really helpful. Access to those discount portals for discounts from various retailers or from company clients offering discounts to your teams, partners that you have offering discounts to your teams. Even the small things like providing fruit bowls, teas and coffees, lunch one day a week can be really, really helpful. And also like a non-directive way of just demonstrating to your teams that you get it and you're there for them. Food banks in discreet places, having showers at work, like offering that to people if they're not making the most of it, letting them know they can charge their devices to save on those crazy energy bills at the moment, and cooking facilities in the office, and having those wellbeing platforms for education and support. And obviously, I'm going to finish on that on-demand access to financial coaches like you can at Claro, and those therapists that you can at Auntie. Okay, I'm conscious of time, but hope we've got 5 minutes left, Sarah.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing all those great ideas and financial tips. I'm just wondering, Maarit, you could put your video on. We have just a couple of questions that have come in, so we can spend maybe just 5 minutes just covering those. Thanks for everyone for bearing with us. I know we started a few minutes late. So the first question that's come through, I'm actually not sure what this was in reference to, Peter, so do feel free to type again if you wanted to elaborate. But it says, women are known to be more neurotic than men. Did you factor that into the model? Maarit, you're on mute.
Sorry, that's a really good question. I have actually not done research on that. I have read a few studies about it, and I would say that that is especially relevant when we think about investment. There is some evidence that women are more prudent investors, and they maybe consider various sides of the benefits and how the investments were, for example, affecting the community. So there might be the personality trait of being neurotic, but it sounds worse than it actually is, and it could be beneficial.
Great, thanks. I hope that answers the first part of your question, Peter. The second part to the question was, diet is known to influence mental well-being. So what we eat, how we consume our food. What is your take on how our diet influences our mental well-being, perhaps even financial well-being?
Absolutely. I think it influences our mental well-being in every aspect, and not only the financial, of course. And if you think about stress, if we think about anxiety, if we think about depression, there are studies that indicate that it is important what we eat, and our gut health is relevant to that. And I like to think about, especially in this context, stress and money anxiety, that it is not removed from other things that are happening in our lives. It's easier to be resilient when you are feeling better in your own body, when you're feeling that everything is functioning quite well. So it's something that if there is any problem with that, I think it should be checked out.
Great. So it's almost this idea of healthy body, healthy mind. The last question, perhaps to both of you. Obviously, there's been lots of really useful information here today. So if there was one piece of advice that you've heard or you've learnt during your studies or by coaching, what would that takeaway be for everyone here today? Stacey, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. From an employer's perspective, I would say to create some sort of space, technical or personal, where you can start better understanding the financial wellness of your employees. So if you haven't ever done that before, trying out a survey or having like a lunchtime session where people want to start sharing their own stories and relationship with money, but beginning to destigmatize that conversation so you can start listening and building that understanding.
I would really agree with that. And I would say that it's really important to tackle the money shame also in the workplace. And if you can, I think it's brave, but if you can find instances where you can start the conversation, when you can sort of wonder about why we so often don't talk about this, and is there something that we as a community can do to help each other, I think everything is beneficial when we consider that there are many people who do not want to voice their problems or talk about it. So they might feel comforted even by knowing that somebody else is talking about it.
Great. I think we might have lost you right at the end there, Maarit, but hopefully people heard. There is just one more question that's come through, so we'll just squeeze that in and then we'll wrap up for this morning. And the question comes from Anu, and they ask, when I know some of my team members are struggling with money, but they don't want to talk, how can we help them? Any ideas?
I would first say just reminding them, perhaps not on a one-to-one basis, but across the whole group or team, what support is available. And yeah, perhaps role modeling, talking about it yourself and how money is impacting you at the moment. And just reminding people that, you know, the cost of living crisis is affecting all of us to various degrees in various different ways, but we will all have struggles and all have successes. And one thing that I often find quite helpful, especially on a one-to-one level with people who are struggling, is getting them to think about the ways that they are good with money, because they often can't see that. So, you know, recognizing that, you know, they're still getting their income every month, and they're still here, and they're not like, or they're managing their budget really closely, even though they don't yet have enough. They're doing what they can. They are I don't know, like just getting them to think about or recognize or showing them or demonstrating to them what you have noticed about ways that they're good with money can really help them to build their confidence. And then obviously offering a one-to-one private conversation with a coach or a therapist to explore it more deeply.
Great, thanks, Stacey. I just to add on to that as well, often we can make an assumption that people don't want to talk, but sometimes it's also about keeping in mind who people are talking to. So providing a space that is non-judgmental. People might not necessarily feel comfortable speaking to their employers directly about their financial situation. So having an independent third party who provides that unbiased space might be a way to encourage people to talk, and reinforcing that so that people do feel comfortable and safe in the knowledge that the information they do share is confidential and not necessarily shared. So it might be that people don't want to talk. It might be a case of creating a space where they feel comfortable that they can. So just to add that in. I'm conscious of the time. We have run over by a couple of minutes. Just to touch on the next talk that we will be giving. Stacey, yeah. So the next talk will be on the 18th of November. The same time, the topic will be managing your money and mental health during the cost of living crisis. And this talk will be specifically for your employees. So hopefully you've all found today's session of value, and we'll be sharing more for your employees next time. Lastly, there was a couple of free resources that we were going to share. I can see people are dropping off, but just for the sake of recording, if you do need to go, we'll share this now so that when you watch the recording back, you'll have access to these QR codes. Auntie has a webinar on psychological safety in the workplace. So you can find that on the QR code on the left-hand side. And Claro has done a money and mental health report, which you can find more information about and read some of that data using the QR code on the right. Great. Anything else to add, Stacey, Maarit, before we finish today's session? Stacey's just shared the link, so if anyone does want to register or share it with your employees, then do feel free to share that around to your teams as well. No? Great. All right. Thank you, everyone. These are the email addresses. If you want to find Maarit or Stacey, you can email them directly. So feel free to use those email addresses after the session today. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. And we hope you found it of value. And thanks. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for hosting, Sarah.